The Rumble interface is slow, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's acknowledge, right? We got a pretty good sunrise on our hands. Some blue, some nice shades. It was nice this morning. Yo, DCS Jumper World. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing. Whoa, no. Hold on. That was one of those ones where I clicked on your comment, and for some reason it took me to your YouTube page. Jumper says, we're back. Baby, NPC news soon. I got the NPC news today. Boy, oh boy, do I have the NPC news. It's pretty funny today. There's a backlog, obviously. There's a backlog, lots of brainworm stories. I love the brainworm stories. Who doesn't love brainworms? You were missed. Thank you, Seaberger. I missed you guys. You got to remember, I get more enjoyment out of this doing it than you guys get watching it. Yeah, I know you enjoy it, but I like doing it, right? So I missed y'all too. But a number of things went on over there, right? It's not... I'm finally not shadow banned on YouTube. Well, I don't know about that. Don't know about that. Yeah, the internet at the hotel, just not strong enough. And then, it's just the 8 o'clock at night thing. After a whole day of doing stuff in Hong Kong and blah, 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 I was generally not able to sit at a computer screen. So I did find a way to do the show. My friend staying at a separate hotel said, come do it. I have a beautiful view. And those, not just friends, regular Breakup gang people. So Breakup gang people who were with me in Hong Kong said, please, come watch it. And, or come do it. But, I thought about it a few times. I was not sleeping very well over there with the jet lag and all that stuff. So, but it was a great time. It was great to be back in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's doing great. I was really happy to see it. The last time I was there was 2016. And on the same trip, I'd gone to Shanghai. And my feeling about Hong Kong in 2016 just contrasted with Shanghai, made it feel like Shanghai or Hong Kong was being neglected, I guess you could say. It just felt old and nothing like the Hong Kong I had known before. Of course, I lived in Japan and South Korea. I lived in South Korea mostly in 2022, 2023, 2024. And then I moved back in 2008 and 2009, but half of that time in Japan. But I was sort of back and forth, even 2002, 2003, 2004, back and forth between traveling a lot to Tokyo and stuff like that. But I'd go down to Hong Kong. A lot of people were going down to Hong Kong back then. It was a lot of fun, and it was so exciting. It was just such great energy. And when I went back in 2016, it kind of wasn't there. And it feels like something happened there. It's different. It's not what it was. It's totally different, but it was neat to see. They did not do so. No, the CCP did not. So Timothy Vanderlinden saying, whoops, I thought CCP was going to destroy Hong Kong. That was the feeling that I had in 2016. It felt like neglect. It felt like it was suffering. But that's not what was going on. Or that was what was going on. I'm not totally positive, but what I see now is just not that. It just felt a little more energetic. Now, it's the young people are having a hell of a time there. There's still a lot of problems. But I was pleasantly surprised about the positive vibes there. So there you go. Pleasantly surprised. Happy that it felt like it had turned a corner. Johnny Midas, yay, it's Nolan. Yay, it's Johnny. We're happy to see you, Johnny. I'm glad you made it. Glad you made it. We've got, I think I saw Deb in the comments there. Bitcoin Deb saying, well, hey there. Well, hey, Bitcoin Deb. We missed you. Tom Melahan says, we're back. Hi, Nolan. Hi, Tom. Hope you're doing great. What else did we got? Every day walking with Christ saying, brainworms. Good morning, Maxis. God bless and welcome back, Nolan. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. It was a quick trip, a lot of energy. I think I have hurt my knee a little bit from all the walking I was doing there. Because I had some jet lag, I would go walking. It's one of the best parts about Asia, by the way, that we don't quite experience in America for a number of reasons. But in Asia, if you're jet lagging, it's the best because the cities are really not violent and pretty safe. You can walk around at any time. There's things open and there's things to do. There's always the vending machines everywhere. We can get some water. So I ended up doing, well over 20,000 steps a day every day. And that's kind of a lot. So I have a bit of a swollen knee today. So I'm hobbling around after everything, and the flight's up and the long flight. So I got to do some time recovering. Jumper DCS World said, had some Tabasco and thought of you last week. Well, they were laughing at me on the airplanes because I'd get they get the little bottles of Tabasco and I'd like, give me 5. 5? Yeah, 5. I can drink that. One bottle is like one bite of meat for me. The tiny ones. So we love them. All right, everyone, let's just acknowledge, right? I made it back to the East Coast of North America. Here I am, and the sun's up. We're doing great. Bitcoin's running. Let's have a coffee, talk about what's new. As you know, we like to start every one of these with our favorite Moscow time stuff, right? What does this say? Unless you had COVID when they throw you off a balcony. Yeah, oh, by the way, our event in Hong Kong was right next to the gulags. Like the gulags were all there, but I mean the COVID gulags, they had built all this temporary housing to imprison people who didn't have a vaccine or something. But I heard a lot of cool scams that people ran. I met a fella that I'd known for years. He works with Stacks. His name is Larry. Well, I don't want to give away all the secrets about, whatever. But he had a pretty interesting tactic. So I'd known him for years and we'd been chatting, not great friends, but just through email and stuff like that. And he told me he had such a cool thing that he did during COVID in Hong Kong. He bought a sailboat and nobody fucked with him. He just took a sailboat and went all these islands and went everywhere and just lived his life. It was great. What a fun story. I thought I had some pretty good COVID evasion stories. This was one of the coolest because indeed, one of the neat things about Hong Kong are all these islands. I stayed on one of these islands for a while, for like 2 weeks years ago. And I had a pretty neat thought about the island. And I shared it with a lot of people while we were in Hong Kong and suggested to people go visit these islands. So the islands that are all around Hong Kong aren't really they don't have a lot of foreigners. They're not a city. They're just these rural islands, fishing villages and stuff like that. But when I stayed on one of these, I had a pretty interesting thought. The one I stayed on was called Chung Chao. And the thought I had was that it was the only slice of China left from all of the stuff that happened that made it more natural, let's say. What I mean is they never had the Cultural Revolution. They never had the communist takeover. They never had any of that. And these islands never had one-child policy or anything that would have totally changed what happened on the mainland. So, of course, the communist revolution and the one-child policy and everything forked the potential future of China into what it is now. And they missed out on a lot of stuff because of that fork. It's just not the same legacy that we could have gotten and inherited from the old Chinese ways. Taiwan's its own thing too. It's kind of a hybrid, but it was reactionary to what was going on. So Taiwan's pretty interesting. But these islands are, in my mind, just this weird little anomaly of people that moved away from China, not far, stayed on these islands. Some of them might have been there before. And then what you ended up having was this really neat place. And I love it. I love these islands, a lot of hiking, a lot of beautiful things. So it was pretty cool to see. Did not get to any islands this time. I barely even went to Hong Kong Island. Our event was in Kowloon. And I spent most of the time on that side. So if you don't know what it looks like, if you go off the coast of China, that you have this little island that is Hong Kong, Victoria Island, I guess it's called. Or maybe just Hong Kong Island, and Victoria Peak is on it, the big mountain. It's just one mountain, kind of. And most of the huge skyscrapers you see are on that one. The other side is Kowloon. And the Kowloon side, tons of skyscrapers and stuff like that. But it's not a place I spent a lot of time in my life. I would usually stay on the main island or the islands out there. But it was neat to see. So I did make it to Central, it's called, which is the main part of Hong Kong once on the last day to go to a couple other side events, but it was great. We had a great time. All right, let's get into Moscow time. We got some good ones today. When you miss out on a few days, you get an extra good supply, right? Ready? Let's start with some of these brainworm headlines. The brainworm headlines are just great, right? So everyone saw the Robert F. Kennedy thing, right? So here we go. New York Magazine. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. once admitted he was suffering mental problems owing to a worm eating part of his brain. If the brain worm is causing him to espouse right-wing views that pull votes from Donald Trump, that worm is a hero. It's a hero brain worm. It's a hero. By the way, RFK had a really good comeback to all of this. He said, I will get 5 brain worms and still debate Donald Trump and Biden during the election. Here's another one. The Hill says, ex-Republican congressman calls RFK a MAGA crazy Republican who will take votes away from GOP. Vanity Fair writes, RFK's campaign says the worm that ate part of his brain will not affect his ability to serve as president. Thank you, Vanity Fair. Thank you. And this one's good. This comes from a Jewish newspaper called Forward. RFK Jr.'s brain worm has a Talmudic history and may be punishment for eating pork. Oh, this one's good. Okay, this comes from Bloomberg. So that's what we got for the brainworm stuff. A lot of fun. The brainworm story's been a lot of fun. I think we got more fun out of it. We'll get some more stuff. This is from Bloomberg, though. Ready? Have a little sympathy for the Federal Reserve. Monetary policy is unavoidably complex, and anyone who says otherwise is not to be trusted. Come on. Just have those poor money printers. You know, it's like, we got problems. Print the money. Oh, come on. Have a little sympathy, right? Even though they have the easiest answer to every problem in the world, it's hard for them. Okay, it's really hard. Hitting print, and I agree. What do I always say about printers? Aren't they the biggest pain in the ass ever? Right? They don't even work. So I agree. You know, if the Federal Reserve has to use printers the way I use printers, it's one of the major problems. So I do have sympathy for them. I can't get a printer to work. They don't work. Printers don't work. I bet the Federal Reserve has trouble with it too. They're like, okay, print $5 billion. The printer doesn't work. Oh, we got to change the ink. I bet you they have all those problems. I'm sure of it. This one's fun, right? We've all seen the AstraZeneca vaccine was removed, right? Daily Mail, right? AstraZeneca removes its COVID vaccine worldwide after rare and dangerous side effect linked to 80 deaths in Britain was admitted in court papers. I'm so surprised. No way. You mean the vaccine wasn't totally safe? What? Who would have known? Oh, this one's good too. FDA says it's preparing for a bird flu pandemic in people that could kill 1 in 4 Americans. 1 in 4 of you is going to die from the bird flu, according to the Daily Mail. But here's great news. Right? We got this cicada bloom that everyone's going on about, cicadas everywhere. Why don't we get the cicadas, right, and the birds together, and then the birds can eat the cicadas or something like that, and maybe they won't have as much bird flu. I don't know. Maybe there's some cure in there, right? But anyway, we got all these cicadas around, and so CBS had a great idea yesterday for Mother's Day. Of course they did. What's CBS's advice on Mother's Day? You deserve a treat, and this spring, Mother Nature is providing a seemingly endless supply. Here are some cicada recipes to try. Let's eat some cicadas. I can't wait. They're big, right? But don't worry. But, you know, some people will say if you eat all these bugs, you might get a parasite or a brain worm or something else like that. I doubt that's true. Come on. Right? Come on. Probably not. Oh, Metro UK has a pretty good one. So Metro UK now has had to shut down its Twitter handle because of this story, and it's a great one. Sorry, straight white men. Doctor Who was never made for you. They're all rhyming today. Why are all the Moscow Times rhyming today? Right? We had the Mother Nature is providing a seemingly endless supply. Here are some cicada recipes to try. Right? I guess Dr. Seuss is in charge of Moscow Time today. Sorry, straight white men. Doctor Who was never made for you. Perfectly Dr. Seussian. Right? Perfectly Dr. Seussian. Oh, so, you know, even though Metro UK had to shut down its thing and then they're not doing Twitter anymore because of the Doctor Who gay article, Bill Clinton, I'm not sure if he's still talking to his wife, but he said the following, without any hint of irony, they're not gaslighting, don't worry, this is not gaslighting. Clinton says, identity politics has brought the U.S. to its knees. Anytime you spend all your time trying to settle past grievances or focus on our differences, you're in trouble. You've gone through a period when the political rewards for grievance-based politics have been so immense that no one was able to give them up. The big political benefits have come from divisive tribalism, but it is a potentially endless disaster. Thank you, Bill. We love it. This one's pretty good. This is from Fox News. San Francisco buys vodka shots for homeless alcoholics in taxpayer-funded program. So if you're an alcoholic and you want a little free booze, it's not just free drugs in San Francisco. It's free booze now, too. Perfect. That's what they need, more alcoholism on the streets. Wasn't it enough that they just had, because the drugs make them a little zombie-ish. So it's not quite as dangerous as it could be, right? Let's get them on some amazing alcohol and have some raging alcoholics. I say they got to start giving away free lines of cocaine, though. Like, it's not enough, right? The zombie thing, it's because the problem is when you get zombified on the fentanyl and everything, you're not really a threat and a menace to everyone. You're kind of just in your corner dying slowly. But a little bit of alcohol and a little bit of cocaine, right, could really spice things up in San Francisco. So really liven the place up. Fox News, right? So commenting on, one of the things I love is like the Fox News and the CNN kind of wrestling match they have, where they're always like, look what they're reporting on. Look what they're reporting. Look how dumb they are. Look how dumb they are. It just goes back and forth. It's so great, right? So this is Fox News reporting on what CNN is reporting on. So CNN news article touts terms like penis owners and pregnant people as inclusive language. So to all you penis owners and not penis owners out there, right now, you know what? It's not men and women anymore. Right? It's much better than that. It's penis owners and not penis owners, right? So that's all that matters, if you own a penis or not. Got to own that penis. CTV News, Canada. We're into Canada now. Election deniers. West Virginia voters must pick from GOP candidates who still dispute the 2020 election. So good. Oh, this one, and this is our last one for the day, and it's perfect, right? It's The Economist. The Economist. We love when The Economist gives us some Moscow time. This is great. This is about El Salvador, of course, right? The Economist writes, gangs are gaining ground in Latin America. This is why iron fist policies won't beat them back. And then they give advice on how to pacify the world's most violent region. And they say, don't look at El Salvador. El Salvador did it wrong. Okay. So, but The Economist knows how to do it, right? So you listen to The Economist if you want to get the stuff saved over there. Now, Mike Benz had a perfect comment on this. He says, once you understand The Economist as a blob rag and narco gangs are an instrument of blob paramilitary control over LATAM's internal politics, headlines like this will make a lot more sense to you. And indeed they will. So there you go. And that's part of our theme today, right? About just how much fake news has repelled common sense people and people who don't want to have this kind of constant dopamine, anger, and vitriol in their opinions about what's going on every day, or even just the inability to navigate and be lost and bewildered by all the headlines you hear. And that's one of the big things that has changed, right? We had this really sort of, let's call it, lost in a fog of war situation, especially after the 2020 election. And this kind of continued for about 2 years until Elon Musk bought Twitter. That was one of the big changes, right? Of course, in 2022, everything started to happen at once. We saw the whole money fraud, FTX thing fall simultaneous to what was going on with Twitter. And I made a prediction at the time. I said, when you looked at the threads that were starting to unravel in 2022, you could start to see very clearly that all of US politics were about to turn into a Bitcoin versus not Bitcoin schism, that Bitcoin was going to become one of the big organizing principles of the entire election. Of course, that prediction looks more true than ever, and it looks like that's exactly what we're experiencing. And we're going to talk about that. But first, let's just go back to that original story that I mentioned about Elon Musk and what a big thing that was in 2022 when he bought it, and how much of the pressure valve was opened, and the ability for the gaslighting really was crippled at that point. And the ability to place us in this fog of war has been way less compact and way less efficient. And people have been able to break out every day more and more. And now it's at the point where it all just looks funny, right? We have such a good bearing now, and we've broken through so much of this fog of war that you can really tell, just like articles that we just mentioned with El Salvador. I mean, when you see that stuff now, 2 years ago, that's the kind of thing that people would have said, shit, this might have an effect in El Salvador. And, you know, people are saying that it's going to be a problem. And you would feel it, right? You'd say, like, I hope Bukele can manage this. At this point, when you see it, Bukele ratioed The Economist in like 10 seconds, just laughing at them, right? I think he just replied to the article with an emoji saying, ah, ha, 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 and everyone just ratioed him, right? Just a simple emoji was enough to ratio. An emoji now is enough to ratio The Economist, which is really where you want to be, right? We're starting to get more media literate, more capable of navigating this stuff. And indeed, just like I said, the Mike Benz effect, Mike Benz really came out of nowhere last summer. And he's on Russell Brand this morning, and Russell Brand published an article with him or last night on Rumble. And that's the headline: "This changes everything." And indeed, Mike Benz has really allowed us to see the architecture of deceit. He's allowed us to see, and he's like a computer builder or something like that, who could give you the schematics about how the machine was made. It really is like a mechanic working on the brainwashing machine or on the fog of war machine. He was there to really show you how the fog of war machine worked, what all the incentives were. He allowed you to follow the money. He allowed you to see exactly what was going on. And it's been a big benefit. Now, we all suspected something like that was there, but he really got under the hood and showed us how it functioned. And here he is talking about a court case yesterday. So I don't know if you saw over the weekend, Elon Musk won this thing against Australia. I remember Australia tried to ban his criticisms sort of pan around the world. And a judge came out and said, yeah, it's not going to work out for you, Australian government. And Mike Benz says, well, the headline is the following from the Financial Times: "Elon Musk's ex wins Australia court fight over censorship of church stabbing video. Billionaire's social media platform said takedown requests set dangerous precedent for open internet." And Mike Benz says the following: "Incredible. X fought for it and won. Everyone here knows Twitter 1.0 management wouldn't have even tried." So here we are, right? Mike Benz telling us about the Economist article, telling us about what Elon Musk did. So indeed, everything has changed, and he was a big part of it. And now that we can see just how toxic this media is, we have the turning point that we needed to get out of this and start talking about things that sort of really matter, right? LMH says, Russell Brand should be a full-on Bitcoiner by now. I think he'll get there pretty soon. He tried, if you remember, in the last cycle. He said, I'm going to do a bunch of episodes on Bitcoin, and then he sort of didn't. I don't even think he did one. He did one saying he was going to do some on Bitcoin and then never followed up. I was waiting for it. But indeed, he will be, I think he will become definitely one of, he converted to Christianity and was baptized recently. So you got to remember, he's just a benefit to all of us, right? Russell Brand, a little bit like RFK. You don't go to Russell Brand for the answers necessarily. You go to Russell Brand for the questions, right? He asks the right questions. He gets stuff wrong all the time, just like RFK does. But indeed, he's a really honest question asker and looks to be, anyway, aligned with most people trying to get out of this fog of war machine. And indeed, I think by the end of all of this, when the story is all said and done, we're going to think of Russell Brand as a major sort of mimetic general in World War III. And I think nothing but a great contribution to the fight for freedom, right? He's a great guy. Big fan. But going back to this theme of everything changing and what a turning point. Now, the other piece that happened at the same time, just like I said, was the SBF FTX thing, right? So go back to 2022 for a second. The fog of war machine just in full blast power, pumping shit everywhere. They're raising interest rates at a psycho rate just after they had done the whole "it's just temporary" and all that stuff. So we're in the middle of this largest ever interest rate increase in American banking history as far as the speed of it. So the American interest rate went up something like 5% over just a few months. And we had never experienced anything like that before. And so you had the duration mismatch. You had what was going on with FTX and all of that. But at the same time, you had the start of the bankruptcies in the United States. And so you had, at the time, it was Silicon Valley Bank, and it took a few months for it to play out, but by January, the crisis was real. And that's why they had to create the facility within the Federal Reserve using the commercial banking system to get rid of some of that risk that had been absorbed from duration mismatch. The difference in government treasuries they had bought had created this big problem on the balance sheet of these banks. So now you have this huge problem, right? And now we see that a few things happening at once, right? So Canada, right? So this happened in Canada. I'm going to talk about the States in a second, but Canada, obviously one of the dumbest places in the world, where, the problem with the Canadians, especially the Canadian bankers, is that they think, I'm not a mind reader, but from everything they sound like they're doing, right? They got gold off the balance sheet because they're so smart. They don't need gold. They can just use Canadian dollars, they were thinking. So the Canadian bank, the Bank of Canada, was worse than the American banks and saying this was temporary, don't worry. You had even the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, telling reporters, it's okay, interest rates are going to be low for some time. The Canadian banks, the Bank of Canada has assured us it's going to be like this forever. We can borrow, we can build, we can do all this stuff. It didn't work out that way. I've believed for a long time that the know-it-alls in Canada, the credentialists and the people that work for the Bank of Canada, have often believed that, I don't know if it's the color of their skin or their accent, they think that they're like Americans and they enjoy the privilege that Americans have with the US dollar. But guess what? The Canadian dollar is a shit coin, and no amount of university degrees or anything like that will make up for what it really is. And so I've often believed that the Canadian dollar is one of the first fiat currencies primed for a speculative attack that will destroy it, right? Just absolutely destroy it. And now it looks like we're getting there pretty quick. Now, I don't know about the speculative attack part, but the problems that the banking sector is now experiencing because of all the trouble is here. So the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, and this dumb shit I've known for a long time, right? Tiff Macklem comes from the same town that I live in the Eastern Townships. I reached out to him many times about Bitcoin when he was the chairman or whatever of Rotman Business School in Toronto. I'd say, Tiff, you should talk to your students about Bitcoin and you should let me do a class on Bitcoin for the students. And of course, he was a know-it-all already back then. Oh, we're not interested in Bitcoin. Oh, no, stupid. Let's come and do a blockchain show, he said to me. Yeah, okay, Tiff. So then he gets the job as the governor of Bank of Canada after. And he's the guy who said, for so long, we're not going to raise interest rates. We have a sound banking sector in Canada. Well, he comes out today and says, brace yourselves for a financial crash. Whoops. Some indicators, there's some indicators, guys, in Canada. There's some indicators that ain't going so well, all right? Some indicators of financial stress have risen. But they said no. They said everything was fine. They've been saying, no. If you brought up that food bank usage in Toronto was doubling every month for like a year, they'd say, no, that's not real. The economy's doing great. Come on. Look at the housing. People are buying houses. We're doing great, right? So now he says some indicators of financial stress have risen. At the same time, the valuations of some financial assets appear to have become stretched. And in this case, by financial assets, they're talking about houses, by the way. Okay, that's what they're talking about, houses. Financial assets are stretched. Which ones? There is no unique financial asset in Canada. It's all priced globally by price discovery around the world. So it has nothing to do with Canadian economy, right? Talking about financial assets, it's in stocks and commodities and stuff like that. Canada has no determination in the value of these things. Perhaps the price of Alberta oil, but that's not experiencing inflation by any stretch. They can't get to market. So Alberta oil trades less, right? There is a discount. There's a discount on Alberta oil because of the cost of refinement and the cost of getting it to market and how shitty it is. Really, it's dirty, and it is truly dirty in the sense that it takes more money and energy itself to purify it to the point where you can use it the way you'd use the West Texas crude or the Brent crude or the other oil indices around the world, the other oil benchmarks, right? The OPEC price, West Texas price, and the Brent price. So because of this, right, the Canadian oil always trades at a discount compared to the others. So that's not what we're talking about here, right? That's one of the few uniquely Canadian pricings that you'll find out there. The rest of it, what he's saying here, financial assets appear to have become stretched. It's nothing else other than houses. So the Bank of Canada is still referring to Canadian houses as financial assets. Imagine how dumb you have to be to consider in a country like Canada, 10 million square kilometers. I mean, it's the second biggest country in the world. It's enormous, right? Now, I get it. A lot of the land sucks and is worthless. But does it make any sense that Canadian real estate should be worth as much as it is? If you guys don't know how out of control the Canadian real estate thing is, go have a look. It's much worse than the United States, right? We've only got a handful of cities, and they've been flooded with foreigners for a long time, using Canadian real estate as a kind of piggy bank. So you've seen that in Vancouver, you've seen that in Toronto, much less here where I live, but it's still prevalent. It's nothing like it was when I was young. Even just 10 years ago, you could still rent an amazing apartment in Montreal for like $1,000. It's up to 2,000, but it's still not so bad, right? Bitcoin Deb, did you see Tucker's interview with Trudeau's hippie brother? He's a good friend of mine, by the way, guys. He is one of the coolest guys, one of the most gentle, honest, legit guys you're going to come across. He helped me. So I knew him for years before I even knew he was Trudeau's brother. He never would like talk about it or brag about it. At the time when I knew him, Trudeau was still just a congressman, what you would call in the United States, a member, probably wasn't prime minister. And so Trudeau's brother owned and operated the first Bitcoin ATM in Ottawa, and he put it in his family business. His family owns a couple of pubs. The mother is how they're related. And so he put a couple of these machines, two of them in Ottawa, and that was how you could buy Bitcoin at the time. So he's been a Bitcoiner for as long as I've known him. That's how I got to meet him. And he's a pretty interesting guy. And I've been a fan for a long time. Yeah, I mean, and just to give you more insight, I can go back to 2015 and I can tell you on one hand the amount of Bitcoiners who were also Trump supporters from the 2015 time. It wasn't Ryan Selkis and all these other guys, right? I used to fight with Ryan Selkis pretty regularly about this stuff. Well, not fight, that's not how I would say it. Ryan Selkis was very anti-Trump back then. If you didn't see, Ryan Selkis was on stage with Trump the other day, which we love, right? I'm so glad Ryan is doing this. Ryan is the perfect guy to be doing this. I'm glad he's become more active and has really seen the contrast. But back then, back in 2015, 2016, there was a handful of Trump and Bitcoin supporters. It was not that popular. And he was one of them. So Trudeau's brother was one of them. Him and I used to chat about this stuff all the time. We were both sort of like, Trump could be a lot of fun. And so there you go. I thought of you while watching it. Great. Yeah, no, he's Lightning Ven says, I bought a Kennedy hat from Kyle in Miami and had no idea. Yeah, like I said, I hung out with him for 2 years before. It was only after Justin became prime minister that people started talking about using this guy because he was close to Trudeau. They thought they could get Bitcoin stuff out of it or crypto stuff out of it. And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even understand he was his brother. He never would talk about it, right? Now, again, it was no big deal because his brother was just a lame congressman. And nobody thought he was going to win except me in 2015 in Canada. So there you go. One of the funniest, I can tell you a funny story about Kyle in Miami. It's hilarious, actually. So I hadn't seen him in a few years. And I was coming home from the Miami event and the night before it started. So we're just doing our prep and we would do some studio testing of the new stage and all that stuff. And so I'm coming back to my hotel and it's got one of these huge roundabout parking lots. And what do I see in the parking lot but Kyle's huge RV? He drives a big RV, right? So he's in his RV and he has it stuck in the roundabout, right? So it's stuck in the roundabout. And so I see him, he pulls his head up, Nolan, and he's got his Kennedy hat. And it just brought back all those good feelings about 2015, 2016, Trump and Bitcoin and all that great stuff. It was a great time, right? It was really a great time. I didn't know the extent to the brainwashing that we'd see in a few months. You know, this was before Russia collusion. I thought just the mere election of Trump in 2016 was going to cure a lot of problems. So it didn't. I didn't really have it gauged properly as far as the risk we were up against. But seeing him again just brought back all these feelings, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. But here's the funny part, right? He's such a I don't know how to describe it. If you want to use the politically correct way of talking about it these days, he enjoys white privilege to the extent that most people can't imagine, and I'll explain. So he gets his thing caught, right? He gets the RV caught, and he can't. No one else can park now. This is sort of a fancy hotel on South Beach in Miami, and all the people outside of the hotel that do parking and run the door and get your bags, the valets and everything, are freaking out. You got to move it. You got to move it. But he sees me and he comes out, right? But he has like 5 kids, right? The kids pour out of the car and we're there. He starts cracking beers and we're drinking them and everyone's freaking out, but he's just ignoring them. He's just ignoring them. The van is all painted Kennedy, right? So he's got Kennedy and he's the same world. So he's there. He hipster doofus a little bit. Yeah, total hipster doofus. So there you are. And he's just parked there and everyone's losing their mind, right? And he's just pretending like it's not happening. And then finally the kids are now throwing rocks into the fountain that's in the middle of the roundabout. And so the valets and everything are now just worried about the kids and the mess they're creating, not what Kyle in the van stopping the traffic is doing. And it goes on for like 30 minutes. Like he just ignores everybody, causes complete chaos, and just doesn't even let it bug him. He's like, yeah, I'm stuck. What are you going to do? You know, it's one of the funniest things I've ever been a part of. And he gave me the hat right there and everything like that. So he's a great guy. He's a lot of fun. And I'm glad he did that interview. And indeed, he's been telling me about his brother and the blackmail for quite a while, or been telling everyone about it, not necessarily me in person. But he's a terrific guy, honest in his way, and a lot of fun. I'm glad he got the Tucker Carlson interview. That was a good thing. So there you go. But back to our story. So let's go back to that 2022 period. And remember, it was Twitter getting bought, right? So Twitter gets bought in 2022. That really helps us get the fog of war machine opened up a little. It's what allows for Mike Benz and these others to really reiterate their story. The Twitter files were a big help, right? Everything that happened with the Twitter files really helped people like Mike Benz articulate their story and then have the ability to add references to it that prove it. So it's not just like what people think, and it's not mind reading and guessing. You had real evidence of what happened and it was able to be put together. But go back to what happened with the banks and what happened at the same time, right? We get the duration mismatch, we get the bank balance sheet trouble, happens all around the world. And these two events were really a turning point, right? They're the thing that started to reorient politics around the corruption of the media at once, but also the banking piece. So what we see now is really the shift of red and blue to what Balaji predicted and a lot of other people predicted, that it would go to green and orange, that the actual schism was going to become Bitcoin and dollars. Now, something that the Breakup has been talking about and predicting for many years, that the 2024 election was going to reorient the axis of political division in America, and that physics was just in charge now, and it was going to spin Americans into one of either of two camps. And of course, you see that now. We had Trump embracing Bitcoin even more last week, and you had the Biden administration moving away from it even more last week. So now that you see everyone talking about that, we see all these financial troubles coming in America, Canada. You've got Balaji mentioning just how bad the balance sheets are. And now you've got these other crypto people saying, oh, don't let crypto get into politics. Right? Don't do that. And I know, you had the Molly Zuckerman who wrote that article for Blockworks going on about election denial. She's just one of these. I've known her for a long time. She's, got a mind virus, I guess. But what we see is someone who, she honestly believes that the US elections were stolen by Donald Trump and that he's some rapist, right? And she's been raped herself by the mainstream media. She has literally been raped. And most of these people who believe mainstream media stories without contention have been raped by them. It's a type of violation. It's a type of mental fucking that allows these people to have the most ridiculous opinions. And so she said it out publicly. Imagine listening to people who believe the 2020 election was stolen. I mean, you have to have a mind virus to not even allow that conversation or to even see how it's possible, right? So Nick Carter, picking up on that too, he says, I'd love to live in a fantasy blank slate world many of you dwell in, where technologies have no partisan mapping and politicians just choose positions tabula rasa. But that's not our world. Crypto is inherently political and has always been. To the extent leftism relies on the politicization of finance, crypto will be a rightist technology, definitionally. It is delusional to meekly intone that crypto is nonpartisan and hope for the best. This will not be persuasive to leftists whose agenda is to threaten open finance. It is suicidal not to align yourself with a faction that actively supports your cause. Oh, yeah, I was going to say that, Jevi. Jevi brings this up. Yeah, this is my favorite. I should have mentioned that in my Moscow time. If you guys didn't see this, it's hilarious. CPI has removed coffee from the calculations now. You will not drink coffee and you will be happy. Yeah. So they did that. Now coffee's out because it paints a bad picture. It just shows you how bad the data is. And why, again, anyone who comes to me in 2024 with a data-driven approach, you need to move to Canada and you need to apply instantly the minute you can get your health care. If you believe that, you need to apply instantly for MAID. You're done. You're done. You're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. Okay. You're not going to make it. If you still believe that there's any data in the world worth a damn, there's only one data point. There is one. What happens on Bitcoin? The rest of the data is garbage because it's financial incentives that you can't understand. The money is broken. You can't follow the money. If you could follow the money, you'd have some idea. And then on top of that, you got to put the context that most of these people are incompetent, right? Incompetency is way more prevalent than evilness. So you have a situation where most of these people are incompetent because the data is stupid, because they actually believe that you can have a data-driven approach. You cannot. There is no way. There's no data. So there's no data you can have faith in. So we're left with this, right? The bank data, none of it. Right? There's numbers, but it's not data. Right? It's not useful. So Balaji talking about this too, saying crypto is for American, not the data part, but the shifting in politics, right? Crypto is for American conservatives and Chinese liberals. Definitely. You know how many people were out there? One of the things I've said for a long time that separates China and Chinese people from Americans and was a major advantage is that Chinese have never been patriotic about their money. Now, some are, of course, but in general, it's much easier to find a Chinese person who is patriotic about other things about their culture, but not the money. And mostly because they're used to their government manipulating the money in order to manage and manipulate the exchange rate between the US dollar and the local currency, in this case, the yuan. Oh, shit. My mic has not been working. I hope my audio wasn't that sucky. Let me put this back. Okay, that should make the audio a little better. Sorry about that, team. I just noticed the thing was off. So Balaji here saying the following. Crypto is for American conservatives and Chinese liberals. It's for small countries and dispossessed minorities because it gives power to those without state power. Democrats and communists control powerful states, so they don't benefit from crypto, but everybody else does. So I agree with Nick's point, but with one major qualifier. Crypto is to the right of American Democrats and to the left of Chinese communists. In other words, it's the global center. I think he's totally right about that. Now, Balaji also talking about this shifting turning point, right? How did we get the politics to where we are? It happened, sounded fine. Yeah, the audio has been good because that's one of the decent things about this MacBook is that it has pretty good baseline audio. But this is still just a little better. So Balaji here saying the banking system broke in 2023. They've just been hiding it in plain sight, and it's already far beyond 2008. And he gives the references here. He says, the purpose of the loans, well, this is from someone who has been talking about the new lender of last resort situation that's going on with the Federal Reserve. And Stealth QE4 wrote about this, and that's who he's referring to. So the purpose of those loans is to ensure the ongoing provision of money and credit to the economy and to ensure banks have the ability to meet the needs of all their depositors. The recent increase in their value reflects financial stress. You can reproduce the graph with Fred data and it's all visible in plain sight. But the idea that emergency loans for banks have already surged far beyond 2008 sure hasn't been widely publicized. So in that sense, it's hidden in plain sight. So what you see here is really the... just the idea, first of all, we said again that the data thing, data, right? Even this data is garbage. So audio better, less roomy. That's what I thought. Yeah. That's why I use this one. It takes some of that stuff away. So, I've often called all of these financial rescue plans and all that a kind of defibrillator. The bank situation has been this bad since 2019 for sure. When I did the Squawk Box in 2019 on the beginning of the reverse repo situation, right? Of course, at CoinDesk at the time, we were always looking for the narrative of money printing because the narrative of money printing is interesting to someone who's writing about Bitcoin, right? Of course. So we were looking for this all the time. And when we found it, everybody laughed at us. Joe Weisenthal, oh, it's technical, you little Bitcoiners. But we predicted right then and there that there was going to be a major print because this was keeping the banking sector alive. If they didn't have an injection of real printing, the repo market would continue to grow. So it was one or the other. They're going to have a massive print or they're going to grow repo even more. They did both. They did both. Repo grew from $25 billion a night in 2019 to $2 trillion within a year and a half. And so Bitcoiners saw this coming. We knew this was coming, not because we knew about COVID. We knew that the patient was sick. They were administering a defibrillator. And that's what I think of all of these things. The patient is dead. US banking has been dead for a long time. They keep it alive with the defibrillator. They keep it alive with the free printing of money. And so there you go. That's the best we can do, right? So, but that's indeed why everything is now shifting, and why the new political schism is really between censorship and this financial global concept of which money system we're going to use, and which is why we're going now, we've shifted politically between the left and the right to woke versus Bitcoin and dollar versus Bitcoin, because the information system, the media, the news, all of that has become entwined in the loss of incentives and our inability to understand what's going on in finances, in global finance. So we have this new schism, we have this new fault line, and we shifted. So it went from a different one into what we see now, green versus orange. And that's why you're seeing things like Politico writing this over the weekend. Crypto is Trump's new weapon against Biden, right? And Balaji saying here, the first Bitcoin election, something we've been predicting for a long time, right? Balaji retweeted, if 2016 was the first Twitter election, 2024 may be the first Bitcoin election. Again, things we've been talking about here on this show for at least 2 years. At least we've been predicting this shift. And here it is. It's becoming more and more obvious to everyone. It looks like things are lining up in that way. And it gets even better. It gets even better because now you're seeing more institutions, more companies starting to absorb the MicroStrategy approach. You're seeing it in Japan. You're seeing this story, Dylan LeClaire, a friend of mine with the Metaplanet situation, Japanese investment firm Metaplanet has adopted Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. So they're going to be using the same speculative attack that you've got Michael Saylor embracing. So you're starting to see it more and more. They're going to do it in Japan, Dylan LeClaire, part of it. And you're going to see more and more of this, right? You're going to see more and more people talking about how Bidenomics is going to lead people to embracing, and other companies to embrace, all of this speculative attacking, right? I predict more and more of it. But the important piece that I think is going to happen from this is that once you couple the lying and the gaslighting and all of that stuff, and you attach it to these the financial problems, you're actually going to be making the case for the type of institutional degradation and embarrassment that will inevitably lead to another big prediction we've made, which is the end of the IRS and taxation. And it looks like they're walking right into our trap, right? So the IRS here, Wall Street Journal talking about this morning, IRS is most wanted, the $200,000 man. 63% of new audits last year were aimed at middle-class filers. Remember Joe Biden last year during the campaign, or 2 years ago, said no one earning less than $400,000 will pay an additional penny in federal taxes, not one penny. But now it looks like all the audits are going after these people. Cernovich says it's the easiest income bracket to squeeze. Tell them they owe $25,000. Their accountant, if ethical, will say, you can pay me that much to fight and maybe reduce it, or maybe owe more, or you can pay it directly now. So the choice becomes very easy. So that's what you're going to see more and more. So you're getting this more and more, right? And indeed, when you start to look at the moral case, or the ability to lead, or the ability to persuade, the ability to be on the moral high ground, they've lost it so much that there's no way the IRS can perpetuate forward. I made a prediction in 2014. I've been saying it since 2014. The IRS and the tax facility was created in conjunction with the Federal Reserve and the banking system, and they will die together. Now that we see just how sick US banking is, now that we see that there is a movement to return to free banking, to get away from the Federal Reserve system, and now that they have completely destroyed their banking system through their own defibrillators, through their own stimulus, through their own mismanagement, through their own gaslighting, what we're having is the opportunity, I think, not to just inject Bitcoin into the conversation, but to really start talking about getting rid of all taxes. We're starting to actually articulate the scam and rug pull that was the temporary use of the IRS to win World War I to what we see now, which is probably the end of the IRS. I don't think it survives this, guys. I don't think it survives it. It doesn't survive it because the credibility of these institutions will no longer persuade people enough to give their money to it, right? We're just funding a world where what we saw in COVID, fat people telling us how to be healthy, stupid people telling us how to be sound smart, poor people telling us how to be rich. None of it made sense. It was all the world gone backwards. And now you're starting to see more and more people are waking up to just how much they've been lied to. Not Bitcoiners. We've been here for a long time. We've had very little adjustment of worldview. We've understood the game for a long time now. We've understood that the most dangerous factors in our society are coming from the government, coming from these sources. They're not there to protect us. They are there to create the problem. But that wasn't really shared widely with most Americans. But now people are starting to finally get it. We had Bill Maher this weekend saying the following. The Democrats have had 4 years to put Trump on trial, and it's just all going away. They blew it at every turn. We got one. Fani Willis is having an affair with the guy she hired, and now that's going to be delayed. The stolen documents one, that's all stupid. The boxes hoax, the Mar-a-Lago. Remember when now we found out last week that it was all fake, that they actually framed the pictures, they staged them, they put classified cover sheets on the documents. It was all a scam, obviously. So that one's all done. None of this is going to trial. None of it's happening, right? The best one they have is the Stormy Daniels. It's all come down to Stormy Daniels. Now, if anyone tells you we don't live in a simulation, just direct them towards this, right? Imagine all these Trump things are going to get them down. They all fall one at a time, but the only one left is the one where it's a porn star trying to say that Trump did whatever, which no one believes because it's totally incredulous. So they're left with a porn star being their only hope to put Trump in jail. That's it. That's all they got left, right? So it's obviously not going to work. Even Bill Maher saying they're toast, right? So you have this situation now where we're seeing indeed the politics are shifting towards Bitcoin versus woke bullshit. And at the same time, we're seeing the credentialists, the folks that need a mandate that requires them or that requires people trust them in order to give them money in taxation to fund this whole thing. That's all done. It's just not going to fly, right? And from here on out, it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better. And in some ways, I think that, you've seen it for days now, you've even seen Stormy Daniels get destroyed on CNN a few days ago, talking about what a terrible witness she is and just how much of a liar she comes across as. And Michael Cohen, of course, testifying today. He's a multiple perjurer. No one believes a word he says. Talking about, even the polls that are coming through, you're seeing it on CNN, people talking about just how much Trump is able to keep his base. Other folks, Biden can't. It's all melting away. So it looks like everything is changing, and we're starting to finally get to a point where the gaslighting is not having an effect. People are starting to crystallize around the knowledge that the government is lying to them, and it's very dangerous. And they're creating a ton of problems that didn't need to be there in the first place. So the great news is it looks like the shift is happening. It looks like everything is happening the way we've predicted on this show for a while. I'll make one other prediction, which is, did everyone see that thing last week with Trump when he talked about the FBI building and that we should build a new FBI building and it should be downtown and not in the suburbs? He made it all just about where the FBI building is, right? Not whether or not you should. And a lot of people were mad about that. A lot of people said to Trump, what about not having a new building? Well, Mike Cernovich had a pretty interesting theory about it, saying it looks like Trump might have made a deal with the deep state. So Trump might have made a deal with, and that Israel was the reason. Israel was just too far, and that the folks supporting the Biden administration, its approach to Israel was just too far, and that the deep state had had enough and had more or less given the job to Trump, which is why you saw this vibe shift last week, which is why you saw Biden getting, CNN can kill him themselves, right? If just CNN alone takes off the gloves with Biden, which they did last week when he had that one interview going on about 9% interest when he took office, which was fake, and he was called out right on camera, and then he just melted. Remember what we wanted to happen? Remember what we said would be the greatest show in the world, which was letting Biden stay in the race so we can watch him rot and just melt in front of everyone. Isn't it amazing to watch him try to stay in the game? It's hilarious. I mean, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Watching him sit there trying to defend himself with half a brain is the funniest thing you're going to see. It's just the funniest thing you're going to see. And I want to see more. I want to see him actually drool on stage. I want to see him look like a completely broken down, mentally ill, deranged, dementia-filled, crazy person. That's the only way it can go. I mean, and it's gonna get that way. It can't be funnier. And if they put Kamala in instead, an alcoholic with a pickled brain would be just as funny. She's as funny as him. She's as funny as him. If she had to go out every day with her pickled brain filled with alcohol or whatever is wrong with her, I don't know. She's got something wrong with her. It would be just as funny. But he's funnier in this case. He's shitting himself. All this stuff is great, right? You got Trump, who people say now with the Stormy Daniels thing, banged the porn star into unconsciousness. That's what we heard from the testimony. So who are you going for? The guy who shits himself or the guy who is so alpha that the porn star couldn't handle it, right? Which one? Which one are we going for? It's hilarious. It couldn't be funnier. It just could not be funnier. So we love it. We just love it. So anyway, go back to the Trump thing about FBI and all that. Cernovich had a really interesting theory that Trump might have made a deal and that he's got the job. And that's why you're seeing the pivot to Biden. Israel thing was just too much. I think that probably takes Vivek out of the running for vice president, frankly, because if you think about the way these deals go, they often come with that vice president. The vice president has been a deep state asset for a long time. It looks like it was so with Kennedy, and that's where a lot of the trouble came with LBJ. The vice president in the case of Nixon was definitely a deep state actor, Gerald Ford. The vice president for Reagan was definitely a deep state actor, and then it was Bush. We've seen this time and time again, and it looks like that's where we're headed again. So not great, but hold on. Who would you rather make a deal? I mean, you're dealing with the best deal maker in the history of the world. Do you think the deep state beat Trump in the deal? He's getting something, but I imagine what he's going to get out of it is they don't even have it pinned down. So I have faith in him to have made that deal. And I think it's all going to work out. All right. I had some other good news stories before we go for the day. There's this one, right? Owen and Gregorian brings it to us. Scientists discover first of its kind molecule that absorbs greenhouse gases. So another prediction of mine that I've had for a long time, that the materials revolution that we're in will get to the nanoscale. And this is really just a nanoscale story here, right? The nanoscale of these greenhouse gas, whatever they created that takes it out of the air, is a pretty good thing. A cage of cages is how scientists have described a new type of porous material, unique in its molecular structure, that could be used to trap carbon dioxide and another more potent greenhouse gas. So Owen Gregorian has another one as well. This one, so this is a separate materials revolution story, but also about nanoscale stuff. A staggering 19x energy jump in capacitors, maybe the beginning of the end for batteries. So again, this is, if you understand, if you read the whole thing, it's pretty long, but what it's about is the way they've created this supercapacitor structure. They layered 2D, 3D molecules, something. And what it means is you're able to solve a problem that the supercapacitors are good at quick charging and quick dispensing of energy, but they're not good at storing and holding the energy for very long. So often supercapacitors work with batteries to get the extra energy to do the jolt they require. So what's happening here is that they found a way using this nanoscale manipulation in order to create a supercapacitor that can hold much more charge. So you get the benefits of supercapacitors, which charge very fast and dispel their energy very fast, but don't hold it. You're getting the battery piece put into it. So it's great news, right? We've also got great news in American nuclear energy. Oklo, that's the Sam Altman thing, got killed in its New York Stock Exchange debut, 54% down, but there's a nuclear company traded on the New York Stock Exchange. So that's a good thing, right? Who cares if the price went down on day one, there's a dump on whatever, that it's there, that it can get this type of cash infusion, that it can get caught up in the zeitgeist, that it can get caught up in the narrative, I think is going to help. So we got a lot of good stuff happening. A lot of good stuff. And then, you think about, well, I'll talk that one later. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Let me see some of these comments. I'll go back to the beginning. Let's see. I got the coffee one from Jevi. Bitcoin Deb talking about what I was saying about Kyle Kemper, who we love. Very gentle person, Kyle Kemper, by the way, guys. Thoughtful and gentle person. Nolan, when will your next book be coming out? Pretty soon. I'll give you updates here, Jason. I hope your trip was fun. It was productive and fun. Well, it sure was, yeah. I got an injury, though. I think I tore my meniscus a little from all the walking, so I'm kind of limping around. But that's okay. It's just swollen right now. It should go down. P-Man, good morning, all. What's up, P-Man? Hope you're doing well. All right. Daniel says, don't forget the blackmailed ones. Yeah, we love the blackmailed ones. They're the funniest. We need a Tom Brady style dollar roast. Can you imagine that Bitcoiners putting it on? Yeah, good idea. Roast the dollar. P-Man says, really didn't expect it in this election. I did. I've been sure about it for a while. Frankly, this was since about 2016, this was my timeline. It really was. It really was. The simulation hypothesis is just ridiculous. Only high IQ individuals take it seriously. I don't. Well, it's just fun. For me, when I say simulation, one of the things I'm talking about is synchronicity and how important synchronicity is. And it's a real thing. So synchronicity and simulation are somewhat connected. Right? I think the show should be called The Breakdown. Nolan, you're the master of it. Love it. It comes down to a porn star. Well, it's not that it was, The Breakdown. One of the reasons I call it The Breakup was because when I first started producing this show, or had the idea to produce it, CoinDesk offered to produce it with me. And because they're making so much money off Nathaniel Whitmore's Breakdown show. So I said, well, I'll call it The Breakup, and it'll be funny. And I do, the break up part is that we're in a relationship with money, and it's the psychological edge that the show often takes, right? So that's why I put break up there. And so there you go. LMH says, could never really pin down Maher. Do you think he's always been a mockingbird? Well, it's a combination of things. Bill Maher, at least, is a person who has long been able to transcend political brainwashing, targeting, or silos. He was capable of learning, and that's not the same as everyone. Now, the mockingbird piece for him, I'm not sure if it's him or not, but what I know is I don't know how he gets full coverage every Saturday morning. Like that's what doesn't make sense to me. Now, he's with HBO, which is a corrupted institution. But the idea that he gets all that press every Saturday morning after his Friday show was always suspicious. How much of that is him or not, right? Mockingbird is predicated on the assets not necessarily needing to know. So I think there is a bit of honesty coming from him, or at least I've given him the benefit of the doubt that he is a good signal for if there's a wider turn happening. So, but I'm not sure. I continue to fall in the trap too, and always, and I always report on what he says. But I acknowledge that everyone reports on him Saturday, and that's the suspicious part. I don't get that. Right? Is he so interesting that every Friday night show deserves widespread media reaction on Saturdays? I don't know. Don Boley says, and I guess referring to the simulation theory stuff, it's not a question of IQ, it's a question of level of education you got. Yeah, maybe. Again, I just have fun with the simulation stuff. I like to talk about synchronicity, and synchronicity is sort of, I don't know, complicated, I guess. Simulation's less complicated, if that makes any sense. Do you believe they will push the button for a hot war with Russia rather than losing an election? I mean, thermonuclear war, not cover ops on the ground. I don't think so, Roy Cup. I just don't think so. Americans are not going to be joining from a soldier point of view. This is never going to happen. Right? Like, we're not going over there. I keep saying we're going to have to go over and fight. No one's fucking going over there. It's not happening. So I just can't imagine it. You know, I just can't see it happening. Is the post-conference party at Pub St. Paul? Yeah, I'm going to be at all those. It's a Bitcoin show in Canada this week, guys. So I will definitely be going to some of the parties. I'm not sure if it's Saturday, but I'll let you know. I will definitely be there, P-Man. Definitely. So we'll be happy to see you in real life. All right. Yeah, you're right about that, Don Bully. Education is not the root, but it's part of the problem. I don't know if it's the education. It's the system that rewarded credentialists who went and did the education, and then it became a closed loop. Education itself is not that bad. It's the incentives. The incentive was the credential, so that's where it got into trouble. It's not the knowledge, right? But again, you know, simulation theory is one of those things you just have to have fun with. It's just funny. It's just a funny way to look at the world, and it's a funny frame, and it predicts in the sense that the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. That's the old Elon Musk maxim. The most entertaining outcome is the most likely. That comes with the sort of context that it's a video game and that you're watching it, right? So there you go. And it's just a fun frame, right? It's just a fun frame. All right, team. That's all I got. I hope you have a good day. I shall see you all tomorrow. I'm glad to be back. That's been about a month of weird delays for the show. And our morning gatherings, but they should be mostly over. I've got to go to Texas in 2 weeks, but I did the show from Texas last year and shouldn't have problem doing it this year. No time change or anything like that, so we should be okay. Can't imagine we're going to have too many more delays. There might be 1 or 2 shows I miss while I'm in Texas, but we should be pretty regular. So there you go. We should be done with our delays for a while and back to our consistent morning gatherings. All right, everyone.